Hello to you all and welcome to another instalment of the Pitcast by us here at the Pit Crew Online, from the fans for the fans. On this episode, we're talking about the Austrian Grand Prix. I'm your host Simon and I'm the editor here at Pit Crew Online. With me today is Luca, Ashleigh.
Hello everyone, glad to be here.
Ashleigh.
Hi, nice to be here finally.
Again, Warren.
Hey everyone.
And Chris.
Evening all. Nice
you
Grand
forgot
Prix.
Taurus. You forgot Taurus.
Oh, Tara, I can't see him.
Thanks.
Hi everybody.
Sorry, Taurus. Last but not least. Okay. So, as I said, we're going to discuss the Austrian Grand Prix, and I think we have to start with the whole taking of the knee. I think really Warren's a good one to go to on this first. Warren,
Okay. Go on. What do you want to say? I mean, I've got some points of view. Being from, born in Africa. If it would be me, I would have taken a knee. That's my personal point of view, because we have to show that we stand with them. And yes, it's a gesture, but it's the right gesture to do.
Absolutely.
That's my view.
Oh, and Taurus?
As Warren said, it is a gesture, just as like wearing a shirt. But the point is, when you take the knee, it's different. It's starting to make a choice that you want to do something more than just write or say words. And I think we need to do more of that. And we've got to take a stand and speak up. And that's part of it.
Absolutely. Chris, what did you think of it all? Did you think that, could you have guessed who wouldn't take the knee?
Well, there's sometimes when it comes to events like this, I mean, you've seen it in the football, all the teams prior to the game. But then when it comes to this, you can see that maybe some doing it in different aspects. And you see the hashtags sort of we race at one, you see the tops prior to the event starting. And there's different ways of doing it. It's such a touchy subject. Maybe having PR people over their shoulders.
Yeah.
And then it's just. I mean, look at Holland because Verstappen didn't do it. The hashtag that's now trending. I'm not fluent in Dutch, and that's kicking off. The hate for Leclerc because he didn't take it. And Sainz, I mean, because he didn't take it. I mean, but it was brought up by Grosjean and Vettel, I believe, in the conference on Thursday prior to the race, which I think raised Hamilton's eye. And but they raced as one, and I'd have certainly taken it as well.
Yeah. Ashleigh, what do you think?
I think that it's good that Formula One are being seen to be doing something, because it is something that we all need to be talking about across the world, and Formula One's a massive platform to be able to do that. It's sad that not everybody took part in it in their way, although they were there. I think that for me, it's so much more than it's the people on the grid have their own thoughts, their own personalities, their own opinions on things, and it's for whatever reason they didn't do it. I think that they should have done it for themselves rather than concerning themselves with what deal they might lose out on, which PR company they might annoy, what seat they might lose next year because of it. I don't know. We don't know the ins and outs, but I think overall it's the right thing to be doing. I hope that this is just the beginning. But the fact that we're having to talk about those that didn't, it's I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, really.
On the plus side, we are talking about it, and I'll throw this to Luca now, but he's hoping to do another podcast on the subject at a later date. How do you see it?
So motorsport in and of itself is inherently reliant upon money in a lot of capacities, and the money tends to come from very backward people, unfortunately. It is the case where you might know of a former racing driver called Danny Watts. He actually came out as gay right after he retired from motorsport, and he raced in the WEC. You know, they race in like China and Bahrain and all these places, and unfortunately, it is the case now that we are seeing a lot of outside external factors that potentially may play a part in what these drivers choose to do and not do. And I will say that before the race, I was really conflicted as to how I felt about the 6 drivers who didn't take the knee.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated. I struggle to know who was right and who was wrong, because they obviously don't stand for that sort of discrimination or bigotry of any kind. Would it be fair to say perhaps that these 6 drivers are not irredeemable? I'm pretty sure that
it's because they didn't take the knee. I think it's really we'll never know, but was it an individual decision or was it a team decision?
Exactly, and we need to know. We really should not paint these people with the same brush. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of people are going to feel very worked up about it, and they're not wrong to feel like that. But it's not like it sounds like I'm sort of, or at least they're not literal Nazis. You know, we've got people in this world who are just so far gone that they'll never come back. You know, the likes of Katie Hopkins, the likes of the Ku Klux Klan, and a lot of these Republican politicians in America, where their party enables their bigoted views. And I really hate the fact that we have to live in a world where people who are of a different ethnicity or a different sexual orientation, a different gender identity than what is considered the norm, they are disadvantaged in such a way. And now these public gestures, I'm sorry if I'm harping on a bit here, I'm worried that maybe these public gestures are being given so much heavy weight that we don't know exactly what's being done behind the scenes by these very same drivers. Well, we're just having to see what we see in the front.
I think it was Charles who grabbed the anti-racism T-shirt on the podium ceremony after. It was almost like he'd been told not to take the knee, but his own personal thoughts were, I should have done it, and here's my show of defiance. I'm going to hold up the T-shirt. I mean, I may be wrong, I may be reading too much into it. Anyway, we'll be on the subject all day.
Yeah. I was just going to say a nice tweet at the end. I mean, Lando, I don't know if anybody saw it. Lando tweeted before the race about it, and to say that we all share the same belief in ending racism, and, asking the fans not to make assumptions to what decisions the drivers take on the grid. So I thought that was quite a mature approach for him to say that. So it might be all those factors. We just don't know, do we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, moving on, as I say, we'll try and cover that more thoroughly in another podcast. But the race itself, before we actually got to the grid, Lewis was handed a 3-pace penalty. He undoubtedly deserved the 3-pace penalty. The question is, was it handed out too late? Do we want to, from my point of view, I think once that's settled, it had gone to the stewards and they'd sided with Lewis, mistakenly sided with Lewis, but the decision was made. So we all went to bed thinking, okay, it's a Mercedes 1-2. And then the next morning, next afternoon before the race, 3-pace penalty. I'll go to Chris here because I know he's got strong views on that. Do you think the penalty should apply no matter what the time? And should there be a time limit on these penalties?
Well, in this sport, unlike, say, football, you can do that. There was new evidence brought out. They got the 360 camera that the stewards didn't have evidence with last night. And the yellow panel was clearly showing flashing, and saw he gained, I think it was 2.5 seconds on his teammate, and he sped through a yellow flashing panel. So 3 seconds, sorry, 3 place penalty. Ricardo's he slowed down, and as a result, he lost his only time in Q3. So it was just really so fair's fair, and he took it on the chin, and I think he got motivation to
push.
have a crack in the race.
It's only fair we go to Taras. He's a big Lewis fan, so
As I've said as well, it was a justified decision, but how near to a re-race do we accept a penalty? Right at the last minute, which happened yesterday, or should there be some sort of cut-off? But if something hasn't been decided, like 10 minutes before the grid forms for the race, is that the cut-off? Because otherwise you can go right up to the last minute and change the grid, and it'd be chaos.
how does that work in WRC, Warren? Warren's our WRC editor, so he may...
Penalties in the World Rally Championship are a bit different. You've got, for example, if a driver retires from, say, day 1 or day 2, they're given a big time penalty and have to run at the front of the field. Now, on a gravel round, the reality of that is that you're going to lose even more time. So the penalties in Formula are quite different where they're dished out. So, yeah. From the point of view of going back to the Lewis situation, I think I'm a Lewis fan, but I like to look at things impartially as well. And if he's made a mistake, then he has to take the penalty. That's my view on that particular situation.
Ashleigh, what do you think? And I think we're all pretty much agreed the penalty was justified, but do you think it was handed out too late, and should there be a cut-off?
I think it was justified, but I think they should maybe have dropped it. I think once they'd made the decision, I mean, I say that as an avid Red Bull fan, so I was very happy when, I found out he was getting the penalty. It didn't end up helping much, but there we are. I think I'm just remembering, actually, I cannot remember what race it was, but there was an instance where we were waiting for hours and hours and hours after a race had happened before the race result actually came out. Yeah, because of something, I can't remember what it was, but I think we would be sort of erring on the side of like a danger then if we're letting the
I think it was Austria last
decide.
year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
because of
Was it Leclerc and Verstappen last year?
It could maybe.
I think we've had at least 2 or 3 races where that's happened, actually. It's not just once.
Yeah,
it's 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and I think we just need to, I mean, especially if it's overnight, surely, the grid must be set at some point, not like 5 minutes before the race is about to start, because that will throw the drivers. I mean, I know there was issues with the Mercedes cars, but you don't know if that would have impacted their mentalities, going so like close to the race. I don't know, but I think that they shouldn't make a habit of it.
The FIA didn't give Red Bull the image for a 3D camera until Sunday morning, and as soon as they viewed it, obviously they said, "Oh, wait a minute."
Yeah.
You're like, why then, Luca?
But you'd expect. Oh, sorry. Go on. I was just going to say, you'd expect the stewards would have all the information at the time.
You would.
So it's just a bit strange.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Luca, do you think there should be a time limit on these penalties?
Have you ever heard of this question, a philosophical one? If a tree falls over in a forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I think this is a very similar mindset that should be applied to when it concerns penalties, and in fact anything really, when new information comes out. Because I seem to remember it was only because someone on Reddit found the onboard camera only like an hour or so before the race of Hamilton going through that sector, and apparently the yellow flag or the yellow flashing board thing started flashing as Hamilton was running through it, which again, you've got to think, like, why aren't the stewards accessing all of this? Surely they would need to access every single perspective possible. But in any case, if that information comes to light, it was like when Leclerc and Verstappen had a collision at Suzuka. They initially said racing incident, carry on as normal. Maybe it's because Red Bull have a very blunt attitude towards penalties, because Verstappen in there again. Red Bull were like, wait, no, look at this. Oh, wait. FIA was like, yeah, you're right, actually. So no, they gave Leclerc a penalty. I do think that in terms of, because I was under the impression that it was over and done with, and then it was only whilst I was out in the car at the time when I heard that Hamilton had got given a penalty, even though he'd been cleared. I wasn't annoyed. I was like, oh, it would be interesting, because even though I'm a Hamilton fan, I do very much want there to be a sense of fairness about it, and if they feel like that's what happened, then surely you have to accept it. My dad wasn't that pleased with it, and he wasn't pleased with the incident involving Albon, although I don't think my dad was being particularly...
We'll catch up.
What's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. Not being particularly impartial. There we go, with that either. So we will get to that.
With both of those penalties. Anyway, moving it along. Again, we'll get stuck on one subject. Racing Point's car. What are we thinking about how similar that is to the 2019 Mercedes? Luca, you're on there. You might as well take that. Do you think it's an unreasonable likeness?
Wait, you saying me or who?
Yeah, Luca, you're on screen, so you might as well.
Well, basically, the way I've been thinking about that is it is basically very much similar to the 2019 Mercedes, but in the end, what is actually stopping these teams from copying Mercedes? Because Mercedes have clearly demonstrated that they are the dominant force in this current era of Formula One. So the only thing that's stopping a lot of these teams from doing that is lack of shame, really. It's they were like, oh no, I want to make my own car. I'm not going to copy the people at the front or anything like that.
Sorry, TJ, I remember distinctly when Benetton were around, and their cameraman literally leaning into the powerful Williams car and taking photos of the foot pedals and such. You know, they weren't just taking pictures of the outside of the car. They have spy cameras all around the circuit. They have all these things have photographers taking pictures of other people's cars, because it's a reference point, especially if, you know, we're coming to the end of the development line of this particular genre of Formula One car. So they're going to look alike anyway. So any little bit of information they get, they're going to take.
Absolutely. And obviously Haas have proven that it's not always an easy feat, but they, in their 2018 car, looked very similar to the Ferrari of that time as well. And so as far as performance goes, I don't know if we ever really knew that Racing Point were actually going to be front runners. I don't think anyone should have realistically expected that, but they did perform very well, and they were in the front of the midfield. So obviously it's something that works, and what's stopping other teams from doing it?
Chris, what do you?
Sorry.
So Chris, what do you think? Too similar?
Well, yeah, agree with Luca, really. What stops anyone doing it? Has sort of pretty much bought the rear end of the Ferrari last year, and because there wasn't much development, they tailed off and ended up running Melbourne spec for the last end of the year. And then you got Toro Rosso, pretty much Red Bull Junior. 2006 was pretty much the 2005 Red Bull.
Yeah.
And then back to the 90s, like you're saying about the Benetton and Spygate in 2007. But if I was Racing Point, first race, I'd be pretty gutted. P7 for Perez up with the time penalty, and Stroll retiring because the Merc engine seems to be a bit suspect.
The gearbox.
So
Taurus, do you think
Um,
can get a podium in that car?
no, because the thing is, what everybody forgets is that, say you take Mercedes' car from last year and you base that as 100%, and you copy it, you're only ever going to get 70, maybe 80%, 90% of what Mercedes did last year. So, and that happens with every single manufacturer. If Ferrari copied Mercedes, they'd only get 70 to 80% of the same CFD from it, because you package the car differently, so that will affect the aero, and so it wouldn't work. But the problem is, long term for Racing Point is that they've now got to keep up with development for the rest of the year. Are they got the well, they've got the funds to do it, but have they got the intellect there to do it as well? So that's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I don't know. Warren, Ashleigh, have you any thoughts on it?
Who
Go
wants
first,
to go
Ashleigh.
first? Yeah, sure. Not really. I think it's not new, as everybody said. It's not uncommon for other Formula One teams to copy off each other, or just be inspired by other cars. That's not a new thing. And it didn't bother me at first to begin with in testing. I just thought, well, fair play to them. If that's what they want to do, then fine. But then actually, like, watching the race and seeing how good they were, I just felt, I don't know if it was like the inner McLaren fan in me, that I felt they've just bought this or copied it almost, and ended up so high up. But I felt like there's other teams on the track that have worked so much harder, and it felt almost too easy for them to take what clearly seems to be a winning formula and just put it on their car and then just immediately do well. I don't know. I felt like other teams had been doing it a bit more by the book. That's how I felt anyway.
The
So.
other teams had that opportunity as well. They've all got,
Yeah, they did. Yeah. But it's like Luca said, they weren't shameless. They didn't just go with the winning formula. They want to find their own path, and which is fair.
Warren? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as the others said, this has been going on for years. And I think back to Benetton and Ligier at one point, back in the late 90s. Both had the Renault engine. And I remember Autosport that year, and they looked at these two cars and they basically looked exactly the same. Side pods, front wings, rear wings, just the general the look of the car was.
Pop quiz. Who did Ligier?
And it does happen, unfortunately, within these formula circuit racing. The cars can and do end up looking the same. Whether the team can get the best out of that design is another question.
Do you remember? Do you know who Ligier morphed into for bonus points?
I'm trying to think.
Taurus?
I'm thinking it's Jordan. I'm thinking along that line, which would then it wouldn't
Jordan
points.
They came in with their own car, didn't they? So I think, if I'm right,
Ligier morphed into Prost.
Prost then went bankrupt.
Who did Prost come in? They're still on the grid, aren't they?
No, they're not.
No, not Prost. Prost became someone else, didn't they?
No.
No, I thought they.
Yeah, they did. They went into Stewart, didn't they?
No, Stewart began, and then it was Jaguar, and now it's Red Bull.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure Ligier is still.
Disappeared. They went bankrupt.
Am I thinking of Minardi became?
No.
Toro
Oh
Rosso?
yeah.
yes.
What did
This is a dead end.
What was BAR before it was BAR?
Tyrrell.
Was that
Tyrrell.
Tyrrell? God, too many. I'm too old, aren't I?
This is why you should exactly know this stuff, because you were there to experience it all.
There's more to forget.
Exactly. So it does happen, unfortunately, with Formula cars. They do end up, as you said originally, all looking the same at the end of a certain cycle of rules.
Yeah, you're cutting out there, Warrens.
Oh, I don't know why.
Anyway, Ferrari's performance drop whilst you're there, Warren. they've dropped almost a second at times in a lap. We know what happened last year.
Staggering.
They had an investigation, and the FIA, in their wisdom, said no further action. We're going to drop it. So Ferrari international assistance strikes again, from my point of view. How do you see? Do you think it was an engine issue and that the FIA have plugged that hole?
Yeah, I think it's quite possible that's the case. You know, that if you lose performance in the engine, it's going to slow you down, and you've got reduced power or torque.
It's a lot to lose.
It's a lot. Yeah. The engine is still.
Ferrari's loss is definitely Red Bull's gain, Ashleigh.
Well, yeah, hopefully. If the engine or I can't remember what it was. I've slept since then. What was it? The gearbox fail yesterday. If they don't have system issues, then maybe we'll be all right. But I know. I mean, it's good news, but I do feel really bad for Leclerc and Vettel, because I would hope that Vettel will be able to get another championship, but I think he's just given up now. And I think Leclerc is such a good driver that he deserves a really good car to be able to do well in, really, and show what he's got.
And I'm sure that driving for Ferrari is a win in itself. I'm sure Tara's would agree. We grew up in a generation where it was Ferrari versus the rest of the world in a way.
Yes, it did, but the problem was, just remember also that they had long periods of having really subpar cars. But coming back to the performance drop, did anyone notice the sort of engine sound yesterday from the Ferraris? It sounded really off, and compared to 2019, it just sounded completely different. So
I
I'm
thought
wondering.
it sounded quite high pitched, but I wasn't sure if it was the camera that was on it.
No,
Yeah,
I've got hearing problems, so hard to tell.
Pardon?
Yeah.
What?
And I can't.
so you can't hear the engine, no.
Luca, what's your?
You want me to say it? All right. Well, obviously we saw last year when Leclerc powered to like 7 pole positions. The second that supposedly they were being investigated, which was just before Circuit of the Americas, they dropped off like something that drops off. I can't think of a metaphor right now. Their car just looked a little undrivable. Like if you were watching a lot of Vettel's onboards, he was like locking up, understeering, oversteering everywhere. And the fact that Leclerc got that car into second just reminds me of like Alonso era Ferrari when he was taking some dogs and nearly won the championship in 2012.
I've always said the thing that separates a great driver from a good driver, and in Formula One, they're all going to be good. But the great drivers, Lewis, Alonso's, Leclerc's, happens, can outperform the car and win in a car that shouldn't. And Leclerc's definitely shown it for me.
Yeah, and Vettel has always shown to be a very particular driver. Not that I've harped on about this before, but back in like the early 2010s when he won his 4 straight titles with Red Bull, the cars were designed to have very good rear end grip and downforce. And since 2014, when the exhaust was moved from the bottom of the car and up to like the middle rear of the car to just go shoot straight out of the back, and the car was very loose, he started spinning all the time. So yeah, Vettel, it was actually Alonso, I think he said just at the end of 2014, these 4 championships of Vettel will probably be I'm not saying exactly what he said, but it'll probably be the death of him in a way, because he'll be put in a car that isn't exactly at the front all the time, and he will struggle. And Alonso, I wouldn't mind asking Alonso for some lottery numbers now, to be honest.
I don't know. With his team picking, I wouldn't go that far. He always seems to pick the wrong teams.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Yeah, but
if he went to Mercedes, Mercedes was not losing. Yeah.
Yeah, Vettel and Alonso have had really bad luck.
I wouldn't go that far.
Why not?
So we're moving on to Lewis penalty
Vettel got
number 2.
promoted into Red Bull at the perfect time.
Oh yeah, you're right about that. All right, sorry, Simon, carry on.
So moving to Lewis's 5-second penalty, or penalty number 2. An interesting incident, obviously on TV. Martin had went for Albon straight away and blamed him, but on hindsight, had to recoup that. He was clearly in front, but as Luca, Luca plays a lot of. I was going to say FIFA, but that's totally the wrong game.
Nope. Nope. I know what you're getting at, though. You're about to say, like, I play a lot of video games and I know the track. Like, obviously, I don't know it completely because I haven't been there. But that corner in particular, there is a lot of undulation, a bit mid-corner camber. And watching Lewis's onboard, you can tell he was understeering into Albon. So Albon's completely blameless for what happened. But I don't think, unlike Brazil, I don't think it was a slam dunk exactly 100% Hamilton's fault. Funnily enough, it's a very similar case of the person behind was on the much fresher tyre and needed to get past the guy in front to potentially go on to win the race. Only in Brazil, Hamilton had the fresher tyre and tried to send one up on Albon and spun him. And then in Austria, it's the complete role reversal of that. Albon was the one behind. And people were saying, oh, Albon shouldn't have gone for it so early. Bugger off. Like, I like Hamilton, but the fact that supposedly Albon should have waited, it's just like, if you see an opportunity, it may never come across again. So you got to do it immediately. You could bide your time, but he was running out of laps. So that's how I see it. I think 5 seconds is a fair enough penalty. I know, obviously, Helmut Marko is now calling for Hamilton should probably get disqualified. I don't really like Helmut Marko that much.
I think Chris should enter here with the centre line whilst we're at it. What Senna have said.
Well, yeah, exactly. Senna, if there's a gap and you don't go for it, you're no longer a racing driver.
Absolutely.
So,
I think they should have that as a banner along the racetrack. Or as their visor comes down, they should say it at the top, if you're not going for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver.
That's what they should have in the stands at the moment. They should have they shouldn't have pictures of the race drivers.
Can we have Murray?
Or Murrayisms. There we are.
Murrayisms, yeah.
Ashleigh, how do you feel? He was obviously Albon was had a big.
He suffered, didn't he, as a result? I don't know if he would have necessarily won the race, because I think he said he thought he could have won it, but shoulda, woulda, coulda. I don't know. We can't really. I think we'll see next week if he's any better, hopefully. But yeah, Lewis he makes mistakes, doesn't he? He's not. Yeah, okay, he's got 6 titles, but he's still a human. He still makes errors, and yeah. As for Alex should have waited. Well, he wouldn't be in that seat if he wasn't making those moves. Then the pressure would be on him as to whether he gets a drive next year, because we know what Red Bull's like. They like to swap the drivers around. So no, I think he was completely justified, and also it just made it interesting as well. It's nice to see Lewis get a bit of competition from somebody that's not Bottas.
He enjoys that, doesn't he? He just seems to revel in the fact that he's fighting now with the next generation. And I said this before, it's like the Roger Federer of tennis. He feels that he not only feels, he is holding his own against the younger gen. They're quite a lot younger now. If you look at pictures of the likes of Alex Albon meeting Lewis Hamilton when he was a kid, it really brings it into perspective how old or how the generation and the guard are changing. Yeah.
But as for the penalty, it was justified. Totally. It's just a shame what happened, really. And then it happened again.
Some people on Twitter are saying calling for harsher penalties.
That was you.
Oh, that's unfair. It's a way.
That was Chris.
I'm only going what the public were saying.
It was a racing incident which was Lewis's fault, but also Vettel actually spun as well. And, I think basically a lot of them were very rusty, including Lewis. And, you know, you just got to take it on the chin and be better for the next race. That's all you can do. It's just frustrating, of course.
Well, thankfully, the next race is just around the corner. So
Yeah.
Where is the next?
Styrian GP.
It's somewhere very similar, isn't it?
I think it's called the bedroll Bing.
Is it? Do you know what it's called? The next race, Warren?
Styrian.
Yes,
Pronounced the Styrian Grand Prix.
The Steinmark.
Actually, just going back to that incident between Albon and Hamilton, I have a view on this. And Albon was on the outside, but he had more grip, and I think part of the reason they actually collided was that his acceleration was so much better because of better grip that those two tyres ended up colliding. So I think that's one of the reasons why that incident actually occurred with the pressure tyres on the Red Bull.
Well, it gives us something to talk about, doesn't it? And obviously that changed the end result considerably with Lando getting to third place in the podium, Leclerc in second, and Bottas first. It's a mixed grid. I don't think mixed podium. I think none of us could have realistically guessed that. What did you think on the Lando podium? I think we're going to go with Luca because he's a big McLaren fan.
Well, I'm not a big McLaren fan in the sense of McLaren do anything I'm okay with. No. By the way, I think my picture's frozen, so if it looks like I'm not interested,
I thought you were asleep.
yeah, I look asleep, don't I? I've been a Lando fan since the first European F3 race of 2017 when he won. And I looked into his past. Turns out I actually saw him race at Croft, and I didn't. Obviously, nobody knew who he would go on to be when he's in Ginettas, of course. But you know what they say about hindsight. It's very much this year, 2020. Sorry. I was so elated. I remember Hamilton got the penalty, and I thought Norris is way too far back. He's not getting a podium. There were so many times throughout that race I thought, oh, maybe Norris could get a podium here. Who knows? And then he just charges for the line, and he dips just below the 5 seconds on the original Delta just before it disappeared. And then Lando sets the fastest, like, did he get it? Did he get it? Did he get it? And then it was 4.8. I was like, yes! And I was so happy. Yeah, of course, Lewis Hamilton, I like him as a driver. But the fact that I get to see Lando Norris on the podium, I was so, so happy. And I just want to say, I know this person's probably not listening to this. There was a guy who I got into a petty argument with on Twitter because he said, out of the 2019 F1 rookies, Russell, Norris and Albon, only Russell is good, which again, if you want to say Russell is the best of them, that's fine. But to say he's the only good one, I think that's a load of tosh. So I hope they were watching on Sunday and they can eat their heart out because... Right, I would question
for you all. So Lando was another Brit on the podium. Can you name the last debutant British driver on the podium of the year?
The last driver who scored
to get on the podium before Lando. Who was the last one? Obviously, Lewis has been on it lots of times since, but how far does it have to go back before you find it?
2004. I'm sure it's Jensen Button 2004 if you're wording it like that, right?
Debutant.
Well, it would be Lewis in 2007, I think.
Yeah, it would be 2007, Lewis.
I didn't know if you were counting Lewis or not. My bad.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that it's been a long spell since Lewis got onto the podium. Another British driver to get onto the podium.
Well, it's the first time for about 7 years, I think, since you got a Brit ahead of Lewis in the standings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. God, quiz time.
And that was Jensen and Lewis's funny year.
2011, yeah, I think that is the case. Yeah. On 2012 as well. I think he was ahead of him in 2012 at some point because Button won the first race of the season, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's nice seeing Bottas win, though. I mean, he had a smile on his face. As Martin, I don't know why Martin needed to put, at the end of the race, had to point out that he's been going through a divorce and he's got a new girl and whatever. I'm not sure the relevance.
Oh, Sky are so Hamilton biased. I can't stand that channel.
They are a British channel when he's a British driver, so I guess they're going to be. But
Yeah, but there are other ways of fair
are terrible.
You've got to, going back to what I said earlier, you've got to be impartial, really. You can't be biased.
I'm sure Chris will agree. They've got form. They'll play a football game, and the commentators will be from one of the football teams, not one of each from an independent.
Yeah, because then they'll get into a fight with each other. What do you say about our player?
Probably not
but I say that it is a Sky channel, it's a British channel, but they never big up, say, Norris or Russell. And it was nice today to see the fact that they were doing it with Norris. It was unlucky that Russell had a chance at points because last year,
that would be nice.
With Williams, their chance.
At one point, I thought we could have Lewis, Lando, and Albon on the podium. There was a small chance at that. That would have been, that would have been pretty special. Never know.
Well, in this lockdown, it was Lando, Leclerc keeping us happy with the virtual racing. It was a shame that, as well as Albon doing the virtual GPs and all that, and they even got on the old TV channel. It was unfortunate that they weren't on the podium because, well, it might happen next weekend because with all these gearbox problems, a Mercedes going to have to take a grid penalty because they were so panicking about it from about, lap 40?
Yeah,
Get off the curb.
Rebuild their gearboxes or do they have to replace?
That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, those curbs are vicious. You can hear them when they're going over those curbs. You can hear it's the grating noise is amazing, really. I mean, I don't know how much difference there is between the curbs at the Red Bull Ring compared to the curbs anywhere else, because obviously there is some difference.
Gearboxes are actually a sealed unit now. They've got to put the gears in at the beginning of the season, and those are fixed. So there's quite a lot of fixedness of the gearbox. I think they can change some things, but it is very much fixed. Coming back to Lando, I'm pleased for him. He deserved it after all the things how he interacted with the fans during lockdown rather, and he deserved it. And McLaren does in a way. It will boost them a little bit more, and it's a good thing for them. So I'm just generally pleased for that.
It's good going forward to them. I mean, who knows what they'll achieve with the Mercedes engine.
Yeah.
Any more talking points you guys want to tackle, Ashleigh?
No, I don't think so. I'm just happy that Lando, somebody different was on the podium. McLaren really deserved it after, so many years of pain. And hopefully they can build on it now. And I'm really excited for Daniel Ricciardo to be joining them as well. Hopefully that will just be a nice team dynamic as well.
It's going to be dream team,
They were crying in the, back last year. They're not so much this year, but last year in the old drivers' briefings, they're always crying with laughter at each other, aren't they? So,
yeah, there was the one where one of them farted, which was, I don't know, if you saw half the race one, and I think it was Danny Rick, and Lando was absolutely losing it. He's
only 19 at the time, bless him. He's still a kid, I think.
Still laughing at fart jokes.
Yeah. Well, I think
we need that though.
Youngest.
We need that though. We need some happiness. I think Formula One is just so brutal at times, as we've seen in that most recent race. So I think to have those really charismatic drivers as well, it'll bring new people to the sport maybe, but just, I don't know, it's entertainment and they really bring that. So yeah. I'm really excited for that going forward.
Okay, guys, I guess we'll leave it there unless anyone else has got anything else they'd like to say.
I'd like to say, all right, you go first, Chris.
I was going to say the clothing brand getting points on their debut didn't do too bad as well.
Well,
yeah, and Kvyat doing a Manson impression.
I'd like to point out something about what Ashleigh just said there about these drivers showing some personality. That is a blessing that we have gotten from this lockdown, because we watch motorsport and we could just watch it for the on-track action, but we as humans sort of identify with relatability, as because I think that's kind of the definition of the word. And seeing Lando Norris was probably the first driver. I know Daniel Ricciardo got him before him when it came to like the personality and being very genuine, but Lando really was such an open book in a way, and he really didn't put in. He of course wants to be, you know, the corporate dream in a way, because that's what pays the bills at McLaren. But it doesn't stop him from being genuine, because you see someone so at ease with themselves and have such a sense of unashamedness. I don't know if that's the word. And it's just terrific to see, and seeing the other drivers follow in his footsteps in regards to, you know, streaming on Twitch, you know, like the likes of Leclerc and Russell and Albon and so many others. It's genuinely just, it's so nice. We're in a great era of F1 now, with the likes of those lot and even like Verstappen, and we've got a good future ahead, especially with the new regulations coming in. If yesterday's race was any indication of what it might be like in F1 in the next few years, we're in for a cracker.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, on that, thank you for listening. Would you like to give your Twitter handles out so we can see you? I'll go with Ashleigh first.
Yeah, let me just load it up. Hang on, sorry. Should have had it ready. So my Twitter is it's at love_Lee and 2 X's.
And Tara's?
Question listeners.
Sorry, Tara's there's a lot of background noise.
Sorry, crusty listeners.
And Warren?
I'm Warren S. Nell on Twitter. Just come find me. It's all rally on my stuff. A bit of sharing of other people's articles as well.
And Chris Lordy? I should know all these off the heart tonight. Chris, what's your Twitter handle?
At C_Lordy91.
And Luca?
Just before I give mine out, I just want to say that we actually tried to record this episode yesterday, and we did, instead of Warren, we had our friend Victor in here, and I feel bad for him that he wasn't able to join us now, because Simon and I we forgot to record. Yeah, so sorry about that. Anyway, my username on Twitter is the Luca Format.
And I'm the F1 Taxi, and don't forget to follow us at the Pit Crew Online. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.